Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bill Namath's Bogus Hangout. I'm going to have our guests introduce themselves. Zara.
Hi, I'm Zara Altair, bogus all the way. I write content for websites.
Doc.
Doc Sheldon of Intrinsic Value SEO, and I'm also bogus.
Terry.
Terry van Horne, SEO pros. I don't know about bogus.
And
I don't know if you should be showing up here then, Terry.
And I'm Bill Salsky of SEO by the Sea, and I'm the Director of SEO Research for Go Fish Digital. So did anybody see the movie that came out from Google this week?
I did.
A Trillion Questions?
No, haven't seen it.
No, have not.
Really?
I would highly recommend it for anybody just starting out in search.
It's
I
about
wasn't even aware of it.
It's about an hour long, and it was one of the best things that have come from them recently. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's it called? A trillion somethings?
A Trillion Questions.
A trillion questions. Okay.
I'll have to look that up.
See a bit of everything, eh, Bill?
Yeah.
All of it that goes into it, you see a bit of it all.
Oh, I'll have to see that.
So part of there's this team with a special mission to come up with the new ranking signal.
Uh-huh.
And they go through the launch process where people decide if the new ranking signals they came up with are worth adding to Google to make it live.
Uh-huh.
And it's called Deep Rank.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Is it deep rank they were doing? That part of it must have went right over my head because I didn't pick that part up.
I watched it again so I could write down the names of the people on the Deep Rank team.
The one guy I did notice was Hinton again from the University of Toronto, who worked on Hilltop. He's my favorite there. Of course, because he's Canadian. When I took my programming courses, it was one of the schools part of the U of T.
So he's English, isn't he? He was born in England. And he moved to Canada. Yeah.
Yeah. Toronto University gets a lot of that kind of stuff. They're a bit like Stanford.
Yeah.
In that companies bring guys like him there to do research. And I remember him also being part of the early internet stuff that I read about when U of T was basically the hub for Canada for the internet.
So he was one of the guys who started out early on artificial intelligence. He came up with neural networks. And at the time he came up with neural networks, they didn't work very well.
Oh, okay.
But he kept on pushing forward with it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Once the computers got better, neural networks worked better.
That was something I was wondering with all the computations that the faster chips and whatnot that are coming out now have to be helping with that.
Well, people were hacking their PCs, so the NVIDIA optical chips were being used to perform all those calculations.
Oh.
So they made neural networks work better.
And those are about the most advanced chips right now, aren't they?
Right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't read that part that it was NVIDIA chips, but I think you're going a lot deeper on stuff than I do.
Well, Google came out with their own chips to mimic what NVIDIA was doing with their chips. They called them TensorFlow chips or Tensor chips.
There's another thing that has tensor in it too.
Google came up with the programming approach called TensorFlow.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Is that once again kind of working off those chips to get enhanced
Right now, it works
Basically
with the tensor chips. Yes. So
Okay.
if you are part of Google Cloud, you can run you can run tensor chips and run TensorFlow using the tensor chips.
Okay. That's their kind of ace in the hole for the cloud.
That's your ace in the hole for the cloud. Yeah.
I would say so.
I mean, they've got the natural language API and they've got the vision API on the cloud. And between those two and the TensorFlow, you've got some AI things you can use.
Okay. So they basically enhanced hardware for AI.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting.
It was an interesting way to try to track people to their cloud services, to make those types of things available.
That is the kind of stuff that will get you cloud services.
Yeah.
I think IBM is using a similar strategy to that, only Watson and something else, right?
Right. So they're using Watson natural language processing API.
Right.
Mhm.
It's not LSI keywords.
Okay.
Zing!
There are people who suggest you use LSI keywords and then link you to the Watson natural language processing API. Well, IBM does not use LSI keywords. They do not generate them. Neither does Google.
I thought that was standard knowledge. I mean, I'm on the outskirts of all of this stuff, but I thought people knew that, but people are still like doing LSI and linking to Watson, and
There
That
are
LSI stuff goes back so far in SEO.
there are
it's
people
unbelievable.
who are either doing it intentionally, knowing that it's misleading, but lots of like when people write about alt attributes, they
okay,
refer to them as alt tags, even though they're not a tag.
They're attributes of
They're
a tag.
attributes. So people refer to semantically related content as LSI keywords because it's got the word semantic in it. So
I see.
It
Okay.
stands for latent semantic indexing, and it's actually an old database term
right.
that
Kind
Dan
of
Thies
Pavlovian,
and
isn't it?
Mr. Rhodes initially said Google.
So
That's
this
how
is
they were
based
doing
on their research
search.
of the word semantic, I guess.
I think the SEOs who use that phrase don't do much research.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Some of them do.
Nowadays, yeah.
Some of them do, but they purposefully use the older language to do clickbait.
Oh, we're back to where we were in the green room before we went live with clickbait
Right.
stuff. Yeah.
So the people who write things like the definitive guide to optimizing pages for RankBrain.
Right.
So how do you optimize?
Optimizing for RankBrain. Okay.
Yeah, because it's not really something you could do, and they're trying to sell magic powder, magic beans.
Yeah, they are. Looks like. I did something with Omi Sito. This was whenever about RankBrain.
Yeah.
And it was, what should you do about RankBrain? Nothing. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Well, what you're doing is bad. It's not good for brain,
yeah.
is it?
So Google's made this new announcement about passages and how they're going to be ranking passages, not indexing passages, but ranking passages. And they're telling people you can't optimize for passages. Well, you can sort of. there's some things you can do. Like
they're scoring it so you can optimize for it.
Like write good page titles and write good headings on your pages that are relevant, that are contextually relevant, that matter. People tend to read better on monitors if you use structured content, if you use headings, if you use bulleted lists and so on. So use that kind of stuff. Make pages easier to read and make those headings relevant. Make them add context.
But Bill, would you agree not that those particular HTML elements have been weighted almost from day one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point in time, the W3C used to have a tool on their site where if you wanted an index of your page, they would generate one for you for free based on the headings on your pages. When Google first started its search engine, it didn't return content from your pages. It returned your page titles.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
So this passages approach, it's quite possible that they use your page title as a root heading for your page.
Which would also be its function in HTML.
They're looking at passages, answer passages within the context of headings, your root heading and main headings. And that's, if you're going to optimize for passages, it's use headings wisely, and same with titles.
Yeah. That makes what John said a couple of weeks ago about how they run some parts of the HTML they get through an HTML lexer to properly figure out what those headings are supposed to be if they're not formatted correctly. So the people who were going around saying not to format 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 were absolutely incorrect all the way.
You got to follow some hierarchy with those damn things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, HTML5 has the possibility of using multiple H1s on a page, because you can use H1s in different aspects of a page, like sections or asides or so on. That's the way that HTML5 is set up.
With the sections.
So, okay, so I haven't used more than one H1. So if you're doing a longer paper, you would have an H1 for a major section and then an H1 for another major section.
So if you're using something like WordPress these days, it's HTML5. It doesn't tell you it's HTML5 as opposed to HTML4. It doesn't use the multiple sections and the asides and things like that, even though it could. Usually doesn't include those. And people aren't building multiple section pages with multiple H1s.
Yeah, and you see the default in WordPress is actually, if you say, give me a heading, it starts at H2.
It starts at H2, right?
Yes. Or mine does. Excuse me. Mine
well,
does.
That's an interesting
With WordPress,
point.
you gotta be pretty specific about that. You're talking about what you see.
Right. Yeah, and that's an interesting point for writers, because we don't always know what system the client is using to present the material. I know that I had actually asked Doc some questions about one of my clients' website stuff a couple of months ago or whenever it was, because I was having I still have the same trouble with it, that it's not WordPress. So Um, so, and now I'm working on a very, very long major article for a client. And actually, sections would be very helpful to walk through the entire article. And I have no idea what they use for their
Well, how do
website.
you what format do you normally deliver your content in? Is it a Word document? Is it
It's a Google
text
Doc.
file?
Yeah, I
Okay,
sure.
because you'll get around a lot of those questions by delivering in a text file. And then you can actually set your HTML and you can set it as an H2, set it as an H3. But and that then regardless of what platform, well, regardless of what CMS at least, I think basically any platform they're going to dump it into is going to recognize the HTML before anything else. Whereas sometimes, Terry and I were talking about this earlier today. It used to be that WordPress, if you did a Word doc and tried to copy paste out of a Word document into WordPress, it used to strip out, used to leave in a lot of that Microsoft garbage that was in there.
Oh yeah,
And it would mess up your formatting.
Word forever because it's
And
so junk.
They seem to have done away with that problem now, but there are still other CMSs out there that have a real issue with a drop-in copy paste of a Word doc. So if you do it in a text file, assuming that your client knows how to drop a text file in, which even if if they're not on WordPress, then it may or may not be any more complicated. But that would get around any of those. Then you're going to get pure HTML. I've never seen a problem with any platform going in with a text file.
Pure HTML. Okay.
It's a little bit more work for you, but for instance, what I've done as a shortcut, a lot of times I would go into my WordPress blog, set up like a page or a post in there, and leave it in draft. I could build it. I can go back and forth between code view and editor view and see what it's going to look like. Make sure I like it, and then copy paste the HTML onto a text document and send it to them like that. Never had a problem doing that.
I just write everything in text documents. It saves a lot of shit.
Well, but for a lot of folks to try to do it from scratch, rough in a text in a Word, a text file from scratch, a lot of folks just aren't up to that.
Yeah.
It would take them longer, and they'd probably screw it up occasionally, So if you have a WordPress blog, that's one way to do it.
It sort of depends on what you've gotten used to. I've gotten used to writing it all out in HTML and text.
Yeah. My editor does HTML, PHP, ASP, almost every one editor for everything.
Beautiful.
It's got clips that I can drop a big thing of code. Like I can do a form in 2 clicks.
Is that a custom tool, or is that one you?
That's just I wrote the code and then put it in the clipboard. I do 1 click in Note tab and it drops the whole thing in wherever the cursor is.
Nice.
Yeah, it works.
That is nice. Yeah, I have one client that wants everything in Markdown.
Because most contact forms, the fields are all pretty well the same. So you have the table and the form pre-made. All you have to do is put where it's going to process and you're done.
Okay, so I got a question for y'all. What sources of SEO information do you trust?
In Bill Slosky, we trust.
Why do you think I'm here?
I'm looking at 2 of them right now. Okay. As far as
there
are several individuals.
Twitter, Facebook, blogs.
There are several individuals that I trust. There are, depending upon who the author byline is, It's rare that I see a published article that I trust. If I see something from Hamlet Batista, I trust it. Okay, I don't care if it's on Search Engine Journal or his blog or up on the bathroom wall. If I see something on Search Engine Journal, I don't just trust it without looking to see who the byline is. You know, I mean, some of the stuff they come out with is good. Some of the stuff is garbage. It depends on who the author is.
There's some that I tend to trust, but I always look at the author because there's some, I see something from Search Engine Land, and it starts going into how to use LSI keywords, and there's one that was about TF-IDF TF-IDF, and it was saying that TF-IDF is a semantic way of writing. And I'm saying, no, it's got nothing to do with semantics. It has everything to do with word frequencies. The tool they were writing about scrapes pages that rank for the same keywords.
Okay.
Which means that a lot of times the words they're scraping are semantically related.
But that's
because
coincidence.
there are frequently appearing words on those pages that rank for the same keywords, but sometimes they're not. So it was saying that this little known blog was ranking higher than the Moz blog for a certain phrase. And they could tell because they ran the TF-IDF tool. And I searched for the Moz blog page with the query term, the query phrase they used, and it didn't even include one or two of the words in the query. Which is why the Moz term was like ranking 20th for that query term, and the other one was ranking second. It had all the words from the phrase. So they didn't even have a fair test.
Well,
clearly didn't know how it worked.
So I complained to the editors at Search Engine Land, and I had them. Actually, I had them
take it down.
Take it down. Yeah.
Good man.
But come on, Bill. How many folks in our industry have you seen that have clue one about how to structure a test? You know, I see published studies and tests all the time from SEOs that they haven't got a clue one.
They prove that by just trying to do a frickin' test, Doc. I don't need to see anything much more than that.
When I see somebody who is known through the industry because at one point in time he was working on a PhD in biochemistry or biology or chemistry or something like that, and he runs a test on 11.8 million websites, and he says, we have this correlation for this, and we have this correlation for this, and writes them as if there's actual causation. It's like, you're a scientist? I don't think so.
Right.
That's
one of the old ones.
So much misinformation. One person that I like for article writing, which is what I do, is Andy Crestodino. He has a system that works, that is SEO related and involves a lot of planning and thinking beforehand, which I think is really important, so you get everything organized by the end. Anyway, when he puts out something, I usually tend to read it. There's just a lot of other people I just blow by. So I don't know who do you all have other people? My focus is writing. Your focus is.
I like reading articles from Dawn Anderson.
Yeah, Dawn.
Oh God, yeah. And also, what's her face? Aleda Solis. She writes some very good stuff. And if it comes to something to do with a spreadsheet and database, well, Annie Cushing is right there at the top of my list. She can do things with Excel that the people that designed that program didn't know you could do.
I co-authored, I'll call it co-authored, an article with Lily Ray. And Lily and I had a conversation, and she took notes, and she wrote the article out. So I didn't really necessarily co-author it. I told her, you're the writer. We shared ideas. But she asked really
I should give you credit on everything I
read. She asked lots of good questions, and we followed the thought processes behind them, and it turned out really well. We were talking about EAT and the patents that show up behind EAT, because there are lots of patents from Google that talk about expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. So when Google says there isn't necessarily one.
Sorry.
It's okay. Sometimes we get those feedback loops. So when Google says there isn't an EAT score, there's no EAT algorithm. There are lots of little algorithms that added together provide information about EAT. I mean, there are at least 12 or 14 patents from Google that are basically about authoritativeness.
Mm-hmm.
There are 5 or 6 about expertise. And there are at least 2 or 3 about trust. So it's not quite telling the truth to say that there's nothing that adds up to being an EAT score or an EAT algorithm.
Well, that's like saying
but Gary,
EAT is a rater's guide term, actually, and the rater guides are analyzing or scoring tests, algorithmic tests. So
the Raiders guide
algorithms.
The Raiders guide is basically Google's attempt to come up with key performance indicators.
Right.
To say these are the results we want to see from our search engine.
Right.
These are the types of sites we want to show up when we score sites highly. We sometimes expect search quality of a certain type. And the sites we want to show in our search results meet that quality.
Right. And they're basically rating the results of experiments, which are adjustments to the algorithms. So there is an algorithm part to it. There just isn't an algorithm called EAT.
So if you've got 10,000 people whose job is to look at the sites that your search engine has rated to see if they meet the quality that you're trying to get from your algorithms, the guide you've written for those raters is indicative of what you want for your search results or how you want them to show up. They're not guides to build web pages, but they're guides to show you what your web pages should contain.
Well, Bill, I think sometimes
here's the thing. I kind of disagree, because if you listen to what they're telling the rater guides, their instructions to them, right? For instance, on the medical alert, it was, how hard is it to find information to figure out that this doctor is a real doctor? There was stuff that you could take from that and go and do it on a website. For instance, adding a byline, author's box, and a good author's bio.
But if you go to a website and add those things, they're not necessarily the types of things that will get those pages to rank well in Google.
Yeah. Well, Bill, I think that's part of the problem that a lot of folks in our industry tend to think in terms of like an algorithm to do a particular function seems to intimate to them that therefore there is that thing called rank, like author rank way back when everybody was thinking that there was an author rank that they could achieve, like a page rank. Okay, there is no rank per se. There's, like you say, there's 60 or 600 little factors that come into determining how this thing looks, but it's not assigning a rank score to it. There's no score for it.
When people started arguing, because there was another study that somebody did where they asked SEOs how many of them believe that websites were ranked by the correctness of facts on those websites. And a lot of SEOs agreed to it. And Danny Sullivan came out and said, no.
How could they?
We do not rank websites based on how accurate the facts in those websites are.
They leave that to Facebook and Twitter.
So there's something called web-based trust that a Google engineer came up with. And it's a ranking signal based on verifying the accuracy, how well certain sites tend to be accurate. They take about 1,000 or so facts and they check those sites to see how many of those facts are gotten correct by those sites. And the more facts that the site gets correct, the more trusted the site is under that approach.
Isn't that a lot of computation?
Well, Google has lots of computers.
Okay.
This is true. And then some.
But they aren't known for wasting cycles either, just because they have a lot of hardware.
Right, but they're trying to find metrics that could be used.
Right.
Like PageRank is wasteful too.
Right.
It's very it goes through lots of iterations, at least the first version.
Right. Whereas Deep Rank actually does the exact opposite. It speeds things up with less computation.
Right. So the knowledge-based trust, if you give scores for sites, and they gave scores for lots of sites, and they looked at what the scores were, the founder of that approach, Zen Luna Dong, came up with a presentation where she showed a list of gossip sites on the web. And they were gossip sites that were high ranking in terms of page rank. And they were very high. They had very good page rank scores. And their knowledge-based trust scores were terrible. Were like the worst on the web.
Because any idiot can get links.
Well, as a good example, if we still had that little toolbar PR thing, wouldn't you want to bet that the Onion would have a high page rank?
Probably.
Yeah. And we know how reliable their information is, because it's not intended to be. So
it's at least as reliable as a White House press release.
That might be
they
might be more reliable than that.
Well, at least this administration.
Yeah. Given that just a couple of days ago they told us that the COVID pandemic was over.
Oh, no.
They did? I missed that one.
Yeah, I think it was like 3 days ago. Yeah, they actually issued
stupidity
a
coming out of that White House is just like laughing stock of the world.
I know.
The people that believe them turn their brains off, man. How can you have a guy look you right in the eye and lie continuously, and you believe him and cheer him on?
Right. People who are telling me that they believe in the current administration in the White House are gaslighting me.
Yep.
But so our trust in SEO sources, we do trust some things.
I trust some people. I don't trust publications
Yeah.
per se.
Someone I've known 10
Right.
years maybe and had actual contact with them. Not someone who runs and gives a lot of credibility to people.
Well, for instance, and I think Terry, you're probably in the same boat. 3-4 years ago, I wouldn't even bother to go if I saw a link to an article on Search Engine Journal. I didn't bother.
Yeah.
But
Right.
since Danny got over there and took over the editorial, it's come up a lot in credibility. The quality of the writing is better. The quality of the reading is better.
Well,
The only problem I got with them at this point is that it's really hard to see the content for all the goddamn ads they've got popping up right and left.
Yeah,
that proves, that they're now popular again because the quality of the writing there for a few years was occasionally Dave and Ellen Blayweiss published there, and that was. I don't know. Did you still publish there then, Bill?
I started more recently than that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Because a few years back, when Dave was publishing there, without a word of a lie, I told him, "Don't do it, Dave. How can you be around that kind of stuff? You're getting thrown in with the people you laugh at." It wasn't a good situation. I just many times in the dojo, people would drop stuff and I'd basically say, quit dropping that shit in here. No one wants to see it.
If the quality of the content hadn't gone up, I wouldn't have started writing for them.
Oh, it's gone up tremendously. Yeah.
I think they realized that, they couldn't continue the way they were. I'll give Lauren that much. He realized there's an issue and made some big changes. Where I would say now they stand taller than that other place that I don't even go to anymore. It's in that category. Only time I go there is like with Dawn. I saw 2 or 3 Twitter things about her. Post and said, okay, it's got bird in the title, so it's at least worth the first paragraph.
Yeah.
And then I realized, okay, this is because I haven't read much of her. I think I was interviewed her once, and that was about it.
Who are we talking about?
Dawn.
Oh, Dawn. Oh, so Dawn is incredibly sharp. Yeah. Yeah, another one that's worth mentioning that I like. She's not as prolific a writer by any means, but Sempost. Ms. Slegg does a really good job of vetting her material. I haven't seen her put out anything that I would find questionable, much less incorrect.
Yeah, she's got some sweet spots like the Raiders Guide and Google Guidelines. I don't go anywhere else but there.
Yeah. It's just unfortunate that she's bitten off an awful lot for one person to do. It's hard to put out enough material to really compete with the others when you're all by your lonesome like that. But
she did have authors there. I know Bill's posted there before.
No.
I was sure I saw some. Okay.
I did a couple over there way back early when she first started out.
Yeah.
But I basically stopped writing for any of the publications a couple 3 years ago. But
I went into I only write for money mode.
And now that we've established what I am, let's haggle over price.
Yeah. Well, when I write something, I'm pretty thorough. So like the last post I worked on, I probably put 16, 17 hours into it. On top of the podcast and interview. So, yeah. Now I do it because I actually am starting to enjoy writing again. So.
I mean, I like spending the time doing the research on a topic that I'll probably use the information from.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's how you learn more and more about those things, is to dig deeper and do the research. And for me, I've always remembered things better when I write them down and I think about them and kind of apply to them things that I've seen over the years. Which that's what I try and provide in my writing, is kind of like an overview of what's happened all along, so someone starting can better understand how it evolved. Because if you understand how it evolves, you know where it's going.
Well, the thing about writing is when you have new information and you process it, you have to at least know enough to be able to write about it, to, you know, to put your thoughts into coherent words. So there's this.
Doc will tell you, I ain't all that coherent. He gave me a fast edit on the last one, which I much appreciate.
There's still a lot of misinformation out there. I think I mentioned months ago now that I had a client that I stopped working with because he had an SEO advisor, and I said, you know, you have all these complaints on the Better Business Bureau, so when you search your name, Google brings up the BBB link first above your company name, you know. And just out of curiosity, I guess about a week ago, I went and looked at the BBB site, and they are actually now finally going through and trying to resolve some of the complaints. But there were many. It wasn't like there were 2 or 3. There were many. But, you know, so their lowly writer was the one that said, hey, get a grip. You know, this is everywhere you are online is part of your reputation. It doesn't just come from your fancy category pages.
It's just not just your blog, folks.
Nope. Not.
And Google surfaces them near the top. Those sites have a lot of authority.
So do any of you get phone calls from the BBB?
No. Do you?
They were kicked out of town. Tarred and feathered in Toronto and sent packing.
About every 2 years or so, I get phone calls from somebody from the BBB.
Really?
Yeah. I haven't for years.
Because
they want me to join, because they charge $650.
Oh, right. Yeah.
$650 a year.
Actually, it's been a while since they called me, but yeah.
No, it's not necessary.
I put them in the same.
They do, even if you don't pay, because when I had a complaint through them, and it was pure, utter baloney, and they first tried to get me to pay, and I just laughed and said, I'm not going to pay you, and here's the proof that what I'm saying is true. And if you don't do something about this immediately, I intend to go everywhere I can think of and say what you're doing exactly to me. Basically trying to extort $650 off. And here's the big part. It was from the United States, a complaint from the States into a Canadian chapter, which wasn't even supposed to happen. I actually went and looked and saw that they're only supposed to handle certain things, and that wasn't one that they should have been handling.
Really?
Yeah. The chapter in Toronto got run out of business for false stuff.
There's a review site in the U.S. that writes reviews of people. And will discuss those reviews with you if you're one of the targets of a review and charge you money to make the review less harsh or remove the review overall.
Yeah. Or even be able to respond to the review. They want you to pay. You have to become a member, basically.
And I'm not going to name the group, but I'm going to say I wasn't impressed.
What does it rhyme with?
And are they the ones who quite often show up in the first page of Google?
They tend to show up highly sometimes.
Yeah.
They're not the only review site like that, but they tend to show up highly sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you get 2 or 3 of those on you, you're really going to have some
The owner of the site called me one day and described what they do. And I didn't say an unkind, uncivil word, even though I felt like it.
Well, you could almost say they're breaking the law in some ways.
I was wondering if there might be a legal point
pushing the
there.
envelope at the very least.
To a degree, it's like, didn't I see you on Days of Our Lives or some other soap opera?
What's Bill building in the background, Terry?
It's
Trump beating down his door to vote for him.
no, that was my neighbor over here, I think, is moving in, probably pounding nails into the wall, hang paintings up or something.
Do you have a new neighbor?
I have a new neighbor. Yeah.
Semi-detached?
I'm in a townhouse.
Oh, okay. Semi-detached. Only with semi-detached, there's just 2 of them. In a townhouse, there's a row. I built far too many of those when I was younger.
So single family homes are like priced much higher than they should be.
Oh yeah.
Like everything in California.
Especially in California.
I'm too close to the coast.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
When I moved to Carlsbad, right there where I forgot the name of the street, goes down to the ocean, and there's a shopping center there with a grocery store and a drugstore, and it's a small one. But anyway, across cat a corner from the little shopping mall, there was a new building with these homes, and there was a huge billboard on the corner, and it said, and this was 2004, this was a while ago now, it said starter homes, only $500,000 and up. And I was like,
starter?
Starter homes. Yeah.
Jesus. That would be nice to be able to start at that level, eh?
It would be nice to start at that level.
Now you could move down here, Bill, because you know what a 10 by 20 meter lot on a nice residential street with all services available goes for down here right now? About 22 to 25 grand.
Yeah.
And that's in a very good neighborhood with full services. Not a big lot, obviously, 10 by 20 meters, but you take the same size lot and you go up to Bonita or Chula Vista, and you're talking 180 to 225 for that same, and may or may not include the services. They may be in a new development where you're going to end up having to pitch in to get the services down your new street.
Oh, right. Exactly. Are you near the ocean?
Say again?
Are you near the ocean?
Now we're about a half a mile back. We were on the ocean, but we
not
built
so-
here about a half a mile back to get out of the salt air because it eats everything alive.
Yeah, I'm 3 miles back myself.
Well, you're in a pretty pricey neighborhood, though.
Yeah, that is a pretty neighborhood. Yeah, because I was like
It's
quarter mile.
pretty and it's pricey.
Because I was like a quarter of a mile from the ocean. I mean, it was 5 minutes walking, out the front, around the corner, down the road, across 101, and I was there at the ocean. So it was very close.
Almost that close to Lake Ontario.
Yeah.
At our other place, I could put a ball in the water with about a 3-iron. A little bit of a stretch. Couldn't throw one that far, but I could hit one that far.
You could hit one that far.
But I bought a brand new barbecue that put up on the balcony, and a year later, I fired it up one day and everything fell out the bottom because that salt air
It just rusted it out.
It eats cars.
Metal suffers in salt.
Anything metal out there, man. I mean, your cars. It looked like somebody was driving around in Michigan where they throw salt on a road.
Yep, it's definitely hard on metal.
Well, last month my car was covered in ashes and soot
Mm-hmm.
from the wildfires.
Yeah, that's hard on the coatings because it's acid.
Sure is acid.
Mm-hmm. So does it matter to Google in terms of indexing if a site is a B2B or a B2C site?
In terms of indexing?
In terms of ranking?
Oh, in terms of rank?
I can't imagine why it would.
I can't either. Is
Unless
this a
you've seen
trick
something I
question?
haven't seen.
No, somebody asked John Mueller this.
Okay.
He asked him if Google treats B2B or B2C sites differently.
Well, the thing there is, you got the B2B. You got two businesses that can be buying a lot of ads. That we know that buying it more ads raises your rankings, right?
Well, you're B2B. You're selling to businesses. They're not necessarily the people buying from you aren't necessarily advertising what you're selling to them.
Well, okay. I was being facetious.
So what was John's answer?
He said no.
Yeah, I would think not either because they're ranking because there's a search query, right? And
Right.
the search queries are going to be different.
Not necessarily.
You may be selling things to the same people. I remember optimizing one website where we had a worldwide audience of about 200 people.
Uh-huh.
We were selling contracts on things like night vision goggles.
Okay.
And we were estimating that a contract might go about $70 million.
Mm-hmm.
So one sale was all we needed for that site.
To pay for it. What you're doing.
But we had a worldwide audience of 200 maybe.
That would be the wholesalers.
So that kind of begs the question about
so we could optimize for night vision goggles just like a
retailer.
Target might, a retailer. Right. But our audience was a different audience.
Yep. The queries are quite often the same. But the offers that would be given on the site would have different numbers, right? So I think there is a time when Google might be able to understand that through the language processing and the neural networks and all that stuff, because they do try and categorize the site. Is that correct, Bill?
I would say they probably try to classify the text on the site and understand what the site is about, who its audience is, who the writers are, how much they should trust it. But if you're targeting the same keywords with that much variation, you're still within the same knowledge domain.
Right. Just your sales pitch would be different.
So use the example of that business. So when somebody did a search for night vision goggles, okay?
Right. So if you're trying to equip your private police force for your small country with night vision goggles, you're spending $50 million. So they're not the same night vision goggles. They are the same night vision, or they're possibly the same night vision goggles that somebody might buy at a sporting goods store.
Mm-hmm.
But you're selling a lot more of them. Google doesn't.
So my question is on the ranking for that store, if somebody for that business, if somebody is searching for night vision goggles, did that entity come up in ranking or not? If an individual, not a small country or, do you see what I'm saying?
No. Did what individual come up?
Okay.
I don't know.
You were working for.
Oh,
I think what she means is as opposed to the Great Britain's army asking, putting in a search query for something like that, as opposed to me putting in a search query for something like that as a hunter. I can't imagine there being any difference if the query is the same.
Ooh.
We would sometimes have equipment that was just released to the to stores to equipment that wasn't necessarily available to consumers.
Right. Okay. You weren't trying to retail it. You were trying to wholesale it or do really big deals where unless you wanted like 10,000 pair, we don't even want to talk to you because you're not what we're looking for.
Right.
Yeah. So in that case, the keywords that you targeted were probably different than those that a retailer would be using.
Right. And the landing pages we were creating were for the assistant of the people trying to make purchases like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The procurement officer.
Right. Because they want to know how you ship it, where you ship it from, where you ship it to, what the cost of goods are shipped to the door, all that stuff.
And by including that type of information on page, you're optimizing for other keywords than just the name of the product.
Correct.
Right. And those are actually your targets, so you have actually less competition and can be a lot more focused in what you're doing. That would be a nice job to get, actually, I think.
So what was your question about ranking again?
B2B, so the question was, does Google treat them differently, B2B or B2C sites?
Oh, I see. Okay.
And John's answer was no, Google doesn't really treat them differently. And what I'm saying is, as an SEO, you're optimizing them differently because you're optimizing them for different audiences.
Yep.
Well, I would assume that John's response was couched on assuming the same search query.
Yeah.
Are we looking at these two entities differently with the same search query? I mean, to me, the common sense answer would be no. It
No.
wouldn't be worth. There's no reason that they would want to.
I
Now-
sometimes see people write complicated articles about selling B2B, where they seem to be a lot more complicated than they really should
Well,
be.
they want to make it seem that way so they can charge more. Bill.
They want to make it seem that way. I know I've talked about this on here before, is that so many B2Bs, especially the software as a system, what's it called? SaaS, where you subscribe to the service,
Yeah.
software as a service.
SaaS.
Yeah, they tend to make it, they tend to deliberately obfuscate what it is they can do. It's like against all SEO practices that I know, where you're trying to help your potential buyer understand what you do and how it will benefit them. And these companies, and you go to their website and they go, we're so totally cool, and we have the fill in the blank thing, and now give us your name, address, firstborn, how many people are in your company, blah 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 blah, and we'll answer your questions. Well, why the F can't you just answer my basic questions right here on the website, so I know whether or not I'm even interested?
Are you familiar?
Stuff is so far over people's heads. They want you to call so they can give you a sale.
Yeah, and I feel so sorry for their salespeople because in order to find out anything about this service, no
what the
questions are
salespeople
answered.
want.
All the people that these poor salespeople are calling don't even know whether they want the thing or not. Because
Are you familiar with white paper marketing?
white paper marketing, no, I missed that one.
Okay, people fill their website up with white papers, and the only access you have to the information on those white papers is the title and an abstract.
Okay, and then it's a paywall.
And it's a provide them with your name, your email address, your company, your phone number, and so on, and they'll provide you with the white paper.
Oh, okay, because
And then you'll be flooded with everyone they write after that for the next 10 years until you
But the main flaw is, if the white paper is relevant to anything you care about, you can't search for the white paper using SEO.
Really?
Because it doesn't rank for anything. Because the white
wouldn't be
paper is
able to
behind
find it because it's behind the paywall.
behind the paywall.
It's not even indexed, yeah.
That's insane.
I did that for about 2 weeks, and then I said to the guy who owned the business, this is a waste of time because no one is going to give you all their information for this.
So I was working for a cloud-based security company.
Okay.
Who was doing white paper marketing. And I explained to them why it wasn't a good idea. And they were really hesitant to switch over to actually publishing the papers on their websites so that they could be indexed. But they did it.
Well, they were smart because most of the people in the industry, that's the way they do it. They were by the forum.
They were so smart that within a year they sold their company because they got offered too much money to not sell.
Right.
That's a good problem to have.
People should listen to their SEO and not try and tell him how to do his job. Just pay them and let them do it.
When your SEO explains why your SEO sucks because you're hiding the information behind a demand, listen to your SEO. If you've got the information that's useful and helpful to people, they want to find it.
Yeah. And when they realize that your product is what they want, because you're the guy who was up front and helped them right from the start. They know you're the guy they want to be with for the product.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it gets you off in a much better foot with the client than
Yeah, so
the other way.
I think they get $70 or $80 million from that. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what you're worth, Bill.
The SEO can make a difference if you let it.
It can. It can.
Yeah. Without a doubt, definitely. So, is there still a problem with the Google Search Console? Is there an issue with the coverage report?
Yeah, they did something with it again. I think it's running behind.
It's not the same problem they've been having with indexing requests.
No, they're just not updating the reports. They're like 10 days old.
I know I got a notice day before yesterday, something like that, that I had one page that wasn't mobile friendly.
Yeah, and then you went and looked and there was nothing wrong with
and there
it
was
when you
nothing
ran-
wrong, and I
when you
ran
ran the test.
all
Yeah,
right,
well, that's
blah,
typical.
blah, you know. But I was like, God, what a waste of time, you know.
Not really.
No,
I've had plug-in conflicts that caused mobile-friendly problems to 2 or 3 pages.
Yeah, or something may have happened during the request that the mobile didn't quite work right.
Yeah.
Right. I fixed the conflicts from the plugins, and the mobile friendliness problem goes away. So it's sometimes good to get those notices that you've got a mobile friendliness problem that's affecting 1 or 2 pages. It's just enough to tell you you've got to check to see what else is wrong.
I've had that
And
happen.
it doesn't
with a
take
short
that
code.
long to do it. It's like as easy as going in, hit test live, and it comes back and says, okay, everything's fine. And move on.
Yeah.
However, that's usually when I'll go in and check my coverage in general and see what I got in excluded, and all the other places as well.
I've seen a problem appear to Google that when I look at the page, it seemed to be okay, and I found out it was a short code that I was using on that page that was causing the problem, and it didn't show up to me on my phone, but it was showing up to their mobile crawler.
Oh.
And it was a legitimate issue. I deactivated that plugin and went to something else, and the problem was resolved in GSC.
Yeah, it's worth spending time with GSC.
Well, short code is weird anyway, because you never know for sure what it's pulling in there.
what it's doing, yeah.
I've seen they have issue with the viewport. Images are larger. And a lot of times I have 3, with Bootstrap, you can program it'll show a different picture for each device, right? And what I find is they seem to maybe just see the big one that's bigger than the viewport and don't catch the other 2. Give me that thing, I go and test it, and it's fine. So when I see those, I don't get real pulled out of shape and run and test them right away. Kind of get around to it, if you know what I mean. But there's other stuff out immediately when I see it, I'm going to go test. That's why sometimes it's ignoring when there's nothing to test.
Okay, so it's a good thing that when Google Search Console is working.
Of
Right.
course.
Yeah, there's the key.
Especially when it's working well. I would say right now the doctor's got it in the office doing something, got it on the table. Just too many indexing issues that they say they're fixed, but do we really know they're fixed? And just ongoing stuff that, how often do you see Google talking about, oh, we got this problem, that problem? Not for this long. So
is this a reason why Google would delay using cumulative layout information as a ranking signal until March of next year?
Oh, they moved the date on that?
No, that's what they originally said 6 months ago. That it's not going to be until
you know why they have to do it, Bill?
Why is that?
Because some people, I have a website that I just talked to them last week explaining that in March, their website is going to have issues with that because there's a slider that only gives width. It does not give height. So when it loads, it doesn't do the height. So it comes in like this and then pushes everything down. And that's exactly what they don't want. So, I would gladly, that's one thing. I'm never, ever going to put that particular slider on another site for that reason. And the fact that it's been hacked, countless times.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
I know which one you mean now.
But it does certain things that clients just love and nobody else really does it that well.
So Google gives lead times for clients who need to have those lead times.
Yeah. For guys who, they see a problem, they can't go when they announce that, if you had that on your website and you just built one, guess what? You're probably going to eat the cost to fix it. Or the client is not going to be with you very much longer. Mm-hmm. I looked at that, spent over an hour going through it, trying to figure out how you can do a height on it. And couldn't seem to see where you could set a height on it. There probably is, and I'm just not skilled enough on that particular program to figure it out, especially with their CSS after it's minified. Kind of like trying to find the one, the needle in the haystack.
So do you guys have retention schedules for e-commerce sites that you work with? Like when you have a product page that the product you run out of every once in a while, how do you handle that? Do you borrow for that page? Do you redirect it to another page?
No,
I haven't had to do one of those in a long time, but I would say that I would redirect it to another similar product if there is one. If there isn't, then I would probably do a custom 410 and just say, we're no longer carrying this, and offer them a link.
It's temporarily out, not 410.
Yeah, whatever the news is.
Oh, if it's temporary, that's something else. Yeah. But
what I did with that, Bill, was we had related items on the page and just put temporarily out of stock. However, we are taking pre-orders because this was a big issue when I worked for a company that sold musical instruments. Yeah. A certain guitar company had let's say, a habit of running out of stuff, telling you it's going to come, take the orders, and it's always late. And the thing is, you have to do that because all your competitors are also taking the same pre-orders. So that was an issue. Another problem I just solved was I had a product that every month the specials changed, and I was putting up a new blog post every month. I changed it to a page, and now it's static because I felt that I was losing links to that page, to those specials. And we also started advertising on Facebook. So I wanted to have a more static URL for that reason. But those are the kind of issues that
you announced the specials and blog posts, but then you switched to make those a page, the specials?
it's a static page on the site now where every month I just go in and edit the products and sales.
Yeah.
A lot simpler to maintain too, eh?
Yeah, but it also maintains any links we get into it, which is more important. So you have a better chance of ranking that page now. Other than the content changes all the time, the one advantage over it is it's always Lexmark printers. And other specials we have, like also have links to the toner and whatnot from the same page. They're one of the few companies that do their own manufacturing refills.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we've flown past our stop time by a lot.
Yeah.
It's good to have you join us. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Everybody have a good one.
Have a good week. Take care.
Ciao.
Bye now.
Today's election day. Drink heavily.